Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for those words of introduction. I want to begin tonight in the same blessed spirit of generosity that Brian just shared with us by sharing a few words in turn about an incomparable leader in the Cardus family. He's a man who since his youth daily defied medical projections, who reads more in a year than most in a lifetime, who loves deeply and fights injustice with an edge of an underdog, who serves as a theological rudder of Cardus before it ever started and remains so today, whose tactical judgment so often hits right on the mark, who possesses unrelenting confidence yet can bear what's broken, who can deliver a sermon on Sunday night and a political thesis on Monday morning, whom we have tasked to teach another generation of how to live wisely in our public life. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing tonight my lifelong friend, Ray Pennings. Ray and I have experienced many joys on the road of these past 25 incomparable, beautiful years. But no joy has touched me more than the people of the Cardus community, patrons, partners, staff, senior fellows, and fellow institutional leaders, researchers, friends, and supporters. The place you hold in my life and in the life of this institution is an extraordinary grace. So then, what has led us to traveling this unlikely road together? Why are we walking together in this same purpose? I've had this conversation with so many of you. The answers I hear differ a little, of course, but they share something important in common. Cardus exerts a gravity. Everyone here shares a posture toward the world that by nature yearns for companionship. It's the questions we ask, the way we pursue answers, our hunger for wholeness of heart and fullness of life. People like you simply must find each other. Before we think about this gravitational force, we actually feel it. We feel it in our hearts that we belong here. We cannot easily name it or categorize it. But still, after 25 years, I've developed a sense of it. Let me tell you about 6 traits of this Cardus gravity and why this brings us together. The first trait is our scale. Cardus works at a human scale in an age when bureaucratic, faceless institutions are floundering. For us, the human scale is the scale of hospitality. It's intimate, it's local, it's where relationships with others truly affirm our dignity. This is the scale of the creative minority, whose fruitful movements of hope and fresh thinking, which, like the apostles in the upper room, have always changed the world. Cardus operates at this human scale, and we seek to serve and strengthen these same human scale institutions that sustain the goodness of society. Institutions like marriage, the family, school, business, and the local faith communities. The second trait is our political theology. We refuse to root our ideas in the sterile soil of ideology, instead planting in the theological moral traditions of Christianity, a wisdom more humanizing, more ancient, yet ever new than any other left-right political distinction of this day. We operate from the truth that God made a world of interlocking cultural spheres, from government to the church, from education to healthcare, and so many more, each responsible for serving some aspect of the common good, each with their own operative competencies and authority. In a properly ordered society, the institutions of these spheres thrive and serve their ultimate ends. At Cardus, we serve those many spheres, aiming to strengthen the good work of industry associations, community groups, churches, as much as we do government and politics. We do so because the true common good only emerges from the work of all of them, a unity so much greater than any of its parts. And this common good, in turn, affirms and uplifts the dignity of every human person. This dignity is not just a corporate buzzword, but a real and eternal principle of divine gift. The third trait is our intellectual approach. In a world where so many remain even unaware of their own first principles or refuse to articulate or interrogate them, we are honest about the convictions which inspire us. We state them explicitly. We take them seriously. We operate from them. We will not waver from them. But those convictions do not close our ears or harden our hearts. The exact opposite is true. We match conviction with wonder, a curiosity about God's reality, and a rootedness in the real human experience within which truth is enfleshed. Comments editor-in-chief Ann Snyder has taught me this in this regard. Michael, you always need a practitioner in the room. Thus, while we engage with the Christian intellectual tradition rigorously and with all its riches, we do so not just theoretically, but as human beings who live out its truth. Dutch theologian, ladies and gentlemen, Herman Bavinck says this: every truth, no matter how doctrinal, abstract, or heavenly, is ultimately practical. Truth shapes life, end of quote. Or, even more literary and kind of exciting, think Dorothy Day's wise reminder that everyone wants a revolution, but no one wants to do the dishes. At Cardus, as much as we are about the restoration of the heart, one that will prevail against the gates of hell, we are also about doing the dishes. The fourth trait is our entrepreneurial dynamism. We take thoughtful risks. Sometimes they succeed beyond our wildest dreams. Sometimes they just fail. But they are also a great teacher. Good risk-taking takes a united team. And in this way, our board of directors, for sure at Cardus, has blessed us by encouraging magnanimity while protecting us from carelessness at the right moments. Entrepreneurial dynamism also means following the mission wherever it leads us. We jump in when we see a need where we're called to fill, and that mission informs our dreaming for the future of our work. We discern communally as well. The previous reference that Brian made, I'll come up with 10 ideas and the rest of the team ensures that the 9 don't show up or see the light of day. It is true. Communal discernment also means hearing the mature judgment of Cardus's elder statesmen, from our extraordinary community of patrons to the many senior leaders that we interact with every day, but also like the refreshing and energizing perspective of our youngest members. After all, to quote the rule of St. Benedict, the Lord often reveals to the younger the wiser course. The fifth trait is our strategic thinking. Over the past 25 years, we have articulated and refined a theory of cultural change, one that we measure over decades, not just in short-term election cycles. We possess a clear view, a crystal clear view of who we engage, the gatekeepers and influencers who shape the decision-making that determines the future of our country. We understand the long process by which cultural change happens, and we have the patience to swim in that slow, meandering river. But we know that a river can turn to rapids at an unexpected moment. So we debate our theory on an ongoing basis, formally revisiting at every strategic planning session, adjusting and nuancing it as we listen to our changing culture, thus steadily onwards to more real impact and influence. The sixth trait, the one dearest to my heart, is our hope. In fact, I would go so far as to call it our defining feature. I would not get up in the morning and come into work every day if I did not carry a deep hope in my heart that what we do here matters. That hope is more than human. It is the theological virtue of hope. It is a hope that comes from the knowledge. It is a hope that comes from knowing who Jesus Christ is, trusting in his good promises. That supernatural hope walks hand in hand with the all too natural fear. Because hope is not an end in itself. It points the way towards that which we yearn to possess, the true, the good, and the beautiful. And so our hope girds us against those who believe in doom and decline, against those who believe in inevitable progress, against those who have embraced a theology of nihilism. Against all of these, we at Cardus are in the camp of renewal. We refuse to simply analyze and embrace decay as unavoidable. We offer positive alternatives, all of which emerge from our trust in a Lord who makes all things new. We are a people where forgiveness and redemption is not only personal, but public and is truly possible. These six traits were here right at the beginning of Cardus, but I have watched them mature and bear fruit over 25 years. They are at the heart of what makes this place different, ladies and gentlemen, what gives it life. They are why we are here, surprisingly, 25 years later. I've been thinking a lot about that 25-year adventure these past months. Let me capture it in this way. First, there is no doubt this is a story of two young men from immigrant families called to public life with a love for what it means to be Christian in community. But second, this is also a story of a small group of business leaders, many in this room, taking a significant philanthropic risk on the very idea of a think tank in Canada that is Christian. To each of you who have been part of that story, thank you, thank you, thank you for your trust that made this possible. And third, there is no doubt that a 25-year pathway of young men and young women, here and there a seasoned statesperson in the mix, from many Christian traditions of increasingly ethnic diversity, have stamped their mark on the character and institutional texture of Cardus. Tonight, I look and wonder, with joy and gratitude to God about where we are today. In our areas of focus, we lead the nation as a research institution. Joanna Van Hoff spearheads an educational program that champions educational pluralism for the common good. Peter John Mitchell and Andrea Morozic make a fresh case for marriage rooted in the best social science, advancing policies that support strong families as the loving foundation of civil society. Rebecca Vachon is fostering a social system that supports human flourishing in all stages of life through ethical, life-affirming care. The work of our Cardus Health Program in palliative care and against MAID serves a deeply necessary purpose at this troubled moment in our country's history. Renza Nauta is articulating a vision for economic life with the human person in the center, whether in labor relations, opportunities for those with criminal records to reintegrate successfully into society, and more. The indispensable Dr. Lisa Richmond, our Vice President of Research, leads this whole extraordinary team, and her commitment to the most rigorous standards of research is really unparalleled. Yet, we're not just pure researchers at Cardus. We work to connect our ideas with those who can actually put them into action. To that end, we have a remarkable team of individuals equipping institutional leaders with what they need to succeed in their vocations, like Father Deacon Andrew Bennett, who every day champions the place of faith in our public life, brings together faith communities in solidarity and action, like Stephen Lazarus, forming a new generation of Canadian Christian leaders through our Next Gen program, like Catherine Kavanagh and Jean-Christophe Jasmin, who in Western Canada and Quebec are bringing our ideas to every part of Canada, like Andrea Senya, who turns research into actionable policy options that our political elites can implement for the human flourishing of all, like Brian Dykema, who is a powerful voice in public discourse for the principles we cherish, like Lynn Swanner, who is strategically creating pictures of Cardus in key U.S. conversations like Christian education. And of course, the beautiful mission and work of Comment magazine, where Ann Snyder so beautifully leads, a space where Christian humanists can together explore the range of Christian answers to the most urgent public questions, offering an intriguing public theology that institutional leaders need today. As remarkable as they are, this team alone does not encapsulate the Cardus community. We fan out across the country seeking advice, gathering opinions, testing ideas. We engage, even on our own platforms, those whose views we do not necessarily agree with. We invite those critical of our positions to offer their input. But more than anyone else, we engage this dialogue with all of you, the greater Cardus community, who inspires our creativity, shapes our deep understanding of the realities of public life today, and our own actions and in our own spheres of influence, and in turn forms part of Cardus's wide impact across civil society. I'm talking about you. This is the firm foundation upon which Cardus is building for the future. And the possibilities of that future thrill me now more than any time in our 25-year history. I believe with all my heart that we have arrived at a moment for which Cardus was made. Not just me or our staff or our board, but all of you here tonight. It was made for you. We are living in a liminal moment in our culture that I have not seen in 40 years of my public life. Our society is experiencing a crisis of faith in the fundamental assumptions of personal and political life that have been part of our cultural understory since the end of the Second World War. How to describe this liminal moment? Where to begin in thinking how to engage it? For our starting point, I turn to Jacques Ellul, the great French Christian philosopher and theologian. This past summer, our team together read this classic work, Presence in the Modern World, which our own Lisa Richmond translated. Ellul says, or essentially argues this: on its own, the will of the world is a path toward death and suicide. We need to deeply understand this brokenness in order to oppose it. Our job is to be at the very point of this culture of death and emptiness and offer God's preserving and restoring spirit to operate there. Over half a century after the long cultural decay began by the sexual and cultural revolutions of the mid-20th century and the explosive rise of secular ideology that accompanied them, we see today the withered and lifeless fruits of a will to death in society today. The first fruit is our culture's spiritual poverty, the poverty of nihilism. We have lost all sense of the role of suffering in God's design and in human experience. To avoid it, we give up on life itself. Here the will to suicide is all too painfully apparent. Euthanasia has become the fifth leading cause of death in Canada. Cardus research has demonstrated definitively that those living with disabilities and the poor and the lonely are the most frequent victims. In fact, the cover story of September's issue of The Atlantic put it succinctly, Canada is killing itself. This is a quote, "Canada is killing itself. The country gave its citizens the right to die. The doctors are struggling to keep up with demand." Simply, this trend makes naked a deep, deep spiritual wound that secular liberalism is utterly incapable of healing. Which brings me to the second fruit, our culture's relational poverty, the poverty of isolation. Modern life has driven us apart, and David touched on this already earlier, from one another. A 2019 Statistics Canada study found that nearly 1 out of every 5 Canadian children under the age of 17 have experienced divorce or separation from their parents. And if close, loving relationships measure human well-being, then Canadians are not well. In 2022, Stats Canada found that only 1 out of every 5 Let me get this right. In 2022, Stats Canada found that only 1 out of every 5 Canadians saw a friend on an average day. It's in a way unbelievable. In contrast, by the way, 25 years ago, nearly half of Canadians did. This lack of community, of thick relationship, undermines human flourishing and cuts us off from the greatest joys of life. Absent real relationships with flesh and blood human beings, where do we turn? Many go online, where they find digital communities, both for good and often for ill. This is the leading cause of the third fruit of the will to death, our culture's poverty of moral polarization. This polarization is so much bigger than just political or policy disagreement, which we always talk about. We are watching chasms widen between differing convictions about the true, the good, and the beautiful. Disagreements about what makes life itself worthwhile, and about what a human being even is. This is why the stakes of our public debate feel so much more intense by the day. This rising polarization is creating powerful anxiousness and anger, violent hearts to violent hands. Now, for a guy who just talked a lot about hope, I know I'm painting a bleak picture here. In many ways, it is bleak. We need to be clear-eyed about that. But just as we should be clear-eyed about this, history consistently reveals that the seeds of cultural renewal sprout in the soil of decay. As more and more people recognize the poverty of our cultural reality, more and more are yearning. That is why the ultimate human questions have stormed back into our center of public life. What does it mean to be human? What constitutes the good life? What is a just society? What makes us happy? The human heart, seeking understanding, shakes the ground of cultural life, and we are already seeing this earthquake of revivified collective yearning. We are watching Gen X do something unprecedented in modernity. They are becoming a more religious generation than their parents. They know better than anyone the spiritual poverty they have inherited, and they reject it. They are searching for answers, and amid that search, many of them are coming home to the Christian church. In France, adult baptisms have increased massively. A British Bible Society report found that church attendance in the UK has increased 55% since 2018. Similar but maybe less clear data exists in the United States, and Cardus data, as you saw today, leans in that same direction. But rejecting nihilism is one thing. The transcendent meaning we decide to embrace is another. At the same time we are seeing these positive signs, other signs could give us pause. Anti-human ideologies abound on all sides of the political spectrum, drawing younger people into darker confessions. We see identitarianism and racialist ideologies both on the left and on the right, of right-wing varieties. We see the most pernicious sin and evil of anti-Semitism seeping back into the cultural mainstream from its long exile on the fringes. and the exploding popularity of that evil has always been a harbinger of humanity's darkest impulses, hasn't it? So many people are finding an answer to the ultimate questions not in the love of neighbor, but in the making of enemies. So, which way will we go? Which way will we go? Towards renewal or towards a deeper darkness? Our moment reminds me of those famous opening words of Dante's Inferno. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward path had been lost. We stand on the threshold, the Dantes, the everyman of our culture, needing their Virgils, needing their guides. Those with a surer sense of the path, who can walk lovingly and patiently with others down the brighter roads to human flourishing, is the future. Who will that Virgil be? It is you. It must be you. For 25 years, this Cardus community has been preparing to stand at the fork in the road with culture yearning for renewal. This is our mission. This is your mission. So what will Cardus be in 25 years to come? We must be a signpost for those on a journey toward transcendent meaning, for sure. We must be a gathering place for those seeking a true understanding, for those who know they need fellowship on this difficult road of public life, for those who hunger for the wholeness of life, which seems all too absent from our public life today. And we must be a muster field from which we can equip many to go out on the mission. All of these images for Cardus's future excite me, but let me offer one more, one that energizes me the most. Cardus must become a garden where renewal takes root and blossom. The garden needs gardeners. That's all of you. A greater will than ours has brought us together in this specific time and in this specific place for this shared mission. This public life calling will be an adventure like no other, full of light, full of challenges. It will be intense. It will test us. We will wake up some days and wonder if it is too much. But we have faith. We will keep going because we know him who calls us to this task. We can trust his good promises. The harvest is plentiful, he tells us, the laborers few. My dear friends, the harvest is before us. The laborers are in this room. It starts tonight. Let's go to work. Thank you.